Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 10 of our reading of The Last Unicorn. I left it on a cliffhanger last time, and so we are going to pick it up now. As Molly Grew and Spindrick and the Unicorn were leaving Hagsgate, they were followed, and they encountered the Red Bull for the first time, and the Red Bull chased the Unicorn around a little bit, and now something has happened. Spindrick has actually managed to cast a spell, and we're going to see what that spell did, even though I pretty much already know. But let's get right into this. This is a reading of The Last Unicorn by Peter Beagle. Now, we're going to go back to this because this is when Spindrick cast the spell. What words the magic spoke this second time, he never knew surely. They left him like eagles, and he let them go. And when the last one was away, the emptiness rushed back with a thunderclap that threw him on his face. It happened as quickly as that. This time he knew before he picked himself up that the power had been and gone. Ahead, the Red Bull was standing still, nosing at something on the ground. Spindrick could not see the unicorn. He went forward as fast as he could, but it was Molly who first drew near enough to see what the Red Bull was sniffing. She put her fingers in her mouth like a little child. At the feet of the Red Bull there lay a young girl spilled into a very small heap of light and shadow. She was naked, and her skin was the color of snow by moonlight. Fine tangled hair, white as a waterfall, came down almost to the small of her back. Her face was hidden in her arms. "Oh," Molly said. "Oh, what have you done?" And heedless of danger, she ran to the girl and knelt beside her. The Red Bull raised its huge blind head and swung it slowly in Spindrick's direction. He seemed to be waning and fading as the gray sky grew light, though he still smoldered as savagely bright as crawling lava. The magician wondered what his true size was and his color when he was alone. Once more the Red Bull sniffed at the still form, stirring it with his freezing breath. Then, without a sound, he bounded away into the trees and was gone from sight in 3 gigantic strides. Spindrick had a last vision of him as he gained the rim of the valley. No shape at all, but a swirling darkness, the red darkness you see when you close your eyes in pain, and horns that became the 2 sharpest towers of old King Haggard's crazy castle. Molly Grew had taken the white girl's head into her lap and was whispering over and over, "What have you done?" The girl's face, quiet in sleep and close to smiling, was the most beautiful that Spindrick had ever seen. It hurt him and warmed him at the same time. Molly smoothed the strange hair, and Spindrick noticed on the forehead above and between the closed eyes a small raised mark, darker than the rest of the skin. It was neither a scar nor a blister. It looked like a flower. "What do you mean, what have I done?" he demanded of the moaning Molly. "Only saved her from the bull by magic. That's what I've done. By magic, woman. By my own true magic." Now he was helpless with delight, for he wanted to dance and he wanted to be still. He shook with shouting and speeches, and yet there was nothing that he wanted to say. He ended by laughing foolishly, hugging himself until he gasped and sprawled down beside Molly as his legs let go. "Give me your cloak," Molly said. The magician beamed at her, blinking. She reached over and angrily pulled the shredded cloak from her shoulders, and she wrapped it around the sleeping girl, as much as it would wrap. The girl shone through it like the sun through leaves. "Doubtless you are wondering how I plan to return her to her proper shape," Spindrick offered. "Wonder not. The power will come to me when I need it. I know that much now. One day it will come when I call, but that time is not yet." Impulsively he seized Molly Grew, hugging her head in his long arms. "But you were right," he cried. "You were right. It is there, and it is mine. Molly pulled away from him, one cheek roughed red and both ears mashed. The girl sighed in her lap, ceased to smile, turned her face from the sunrise. Molly said, Schmendrick, you poor man, you magician, don't you see? See what? There's nothing to see. But his voice was suddenly hard and wary, and the green eyes were beginning to be frightened. The Red Bull came for a unicorn, so she had to become something else. You begged me to change her. What is it frets you now? Molly shook her head in the wavering way of an old woman. She said, I don't know. I didn't know you meant to turn her into a human girl. You would have done better. She did not finish, but looked away from him. One hand continued to stroke the white girl's hair. The magic chose the shape, not I, Schmendrick answered. A mountebank may select this cheat or that, but a magician is a porter, a donkey carrying his master where it may. The magician calls, but the magic chooses if it changes a unicorn into a human being. Then that was the only thing to do. His face was fevered with an ardent delirium, which made him look even younger. I am a bearer, he sang. I am a dwelling. I am a messenger. You are an idiot, Molly Grew said fiercely. Do you hear me? You're a magician, all right, but you're a stupid magician. But the girl was trying to wake, her hands opening and closing, and her eyelids beating like birds' breasts. As Molly and Schmendrick looked on, the girl made a soft sound and opened her eyes. They were farther apart than common, and somewhat deeper set, and they were as dark as the deep sea, and illuminated like the sea by strange glimmering creatures that never rise to the surface. The unicorn could have been transformed into a lizard, Molly thought, or into a shark, a snail, a goose, and somehow still her eyes would have given the change away. To me, anyways, I would know. The girl lay without moving, her eyes finding herself in Molly's eyes and in Schmendrick's. Then, in one motion, she was on her feet, the black cloak falling back across Molly's lap. For a moment she turned in a circle, staring at her hands, which she held high and useless, close to her breast. She bobbed and shambled like an ape doing a trick, and her face was the silly, bewildered face of a joker's victim, and yet she could make no move that was not beautiful. Her trapped terror was more lovely than any joy that Molly had ever seen, and that was the most terrible thing about it. Donkey, Molly said, messenger. I can change her back, the magician answered hoarsely. Don't worry about it. I can change her back. Shining in the sun, the white girl hobbled to and fro on her strong young legs. She stumbled suddenly and fell, and it was a bad fall because she did not know how to catch herself with her hands. Molly flew to her, but the girl crouched on the ground, staring at her, and spoke in a low voice. What have you done to me? Molly Grew began to cry. Schmendrick came forward, his face cold and wet, but his voice level. I turned you into a human being to save you from the Red Bull. There was nothing else I could do. I'll turn you to yourself again as soon as I can. The Red Bull, the girl whispered. Ah, she was trembling wildly as though something were shaking and hammering at her skin from within. He was too strong, she said. Too strong. There was no end to his strength, and no beginning. He is older than I. Her eyes widened, and it seemed to Molly that the bull moved in them, crossing their depths like a flaming fish, and vanishing. The girl began to touch her face timidly, recoiling from the feel of her own features, her curled fingers brushing the mark on her forehead, and she closed her eyes and gave a thin, stabbing howl of loss and weariness and utter despair. "What have you done to me?" she cried. "I will die here." She tore at the smooth body, and blood followed her fingers. "I will die here. I will die." Yet there was no fear in her face, though it ramped in her voice, in her hands and feet, in the white hair that fell down over her new body. Her face remained quiet and untouched. Molly huddled over her as near as she dared, begging her not to hurt herself, but Smendrick said, "Be still," and the two words crackled like autumn branches. He said, "The magic knew what it was doing. Be still and listen." "Why did you not let the bull kill me?" the white girl moaned. "Why did you not leave me to the harpy? That would have been kinder than closing me in this cage." The magician winced, remembering Molly Grew's mocking accusation, but he spoke with a desperate calmness. "In the first place, it's quite an attractive shape," he said. You couldn't have done much better and still remained human." She looked at herself, sideways at her shoulder and along her arms, and down. She scratched and welted. She looked at herself sideways at her shoulder and along her arms, then down her scratched and welting body. She stood on one foot to inspect the soul of the other, cocked her eyes up to see the silver brows, squinting down her cheeks to catch a flash of her nose, and even peering close at the sea-green veins inside her wrists, themselves as gaily made as young otters. At last she turned her face to the magician, and again he caught his breath. "I have made magic," he thought, but sorrow winked sharp in his throat, like a fishhook setting fast. "All right," he said, "it would make no difference to you if I had changed you into a rhinoceros, which is where the whole silly myth got started. But in this guise, you have some chance of reaching King Haggard and finding out what has become of your people. As a unicorn, you would only suffer their fate, unless you think you could defeat the bull if you met him a second time." The white girl shook her head. "No," she answered, "never another time. I would not stand so long." Her voice was too soft, as though its bones had been broken. She said, "My people are gone, and I will follow them soon, whatever shape you trap me in. But I would have chosen any other than this for my prison. A rhinoceros is as ugly as a human being, and it too is going to die, but at least it never thinks that it is beautiful." "No, I never think that," the magician agreed. "That's why it goes on being a rhinoceros and will never be welcome even at Haggard's court. But a girl to whom it can never mean anything that she is not a rhinoceros. Such a girl, while the king and his son seek to solve her, might unravel her own riddle until she comes to its end. Rhinoceri are not questing beasts, but young girls are." The sky was hot and curdling. The sun had already melted into a lion-colored puddle, and on the plain of Hagsgate nothing stirred but the stale, heavy wind. The naked girl, with the flower mark on her forehead, stared silently at the green-eyed man and the woman watching them both in the tawny morning. King Haggard's castle seemed neither dark nor accursed, but merely grimy, run-down, and poorly designed. Its skinny spires looked nothing like a bull's horns, but rather like those on a jester's cap, or like the horns of a dilemma, Smendrick thought. They never have just two. The white girl said, "I am myself still. This body is dying. I can feel it rotting around me. How can anything that is going to die be real? How can it be truly beautiful?" Molly Grew put the magician's cloak around her shoulders again, not for modesty or seemliness, but out of strange pity, as though to keep her from seeing herself. I will tell you a story, Smendrick said. As a child, I was apprenticed to the mightiest magician of all, the great Nikos, whom I have spoken of before. But even Nikos, who could turn cats into cattle, snowflakes into snowdrops, and unicorns into men, could not change me into so much as a carnival card sharp. At last he said to me, "My son, your ineptitude is so vast, your incompetence so profound, that I am certain you are inhabited by a greater power than I have ever known. However, it seems to be working backwards at the moment, and even I can find no way to set it right. It must be that you are meant to find your own way to reach your power in time, but frankly, you should live so long as that will take you. Therefore, I grant it that you shall not age from this day forth, but will travel the world round and round, eternally inefficient, until at last you come to yourself, and I know what you are. Don't thank me. I tremble at your doom." The white girl regarded him out of the unicorn's clear amaranthine eyes, gentle and frightening in the unused face. But she said nothing. It was Molly Grew who asked, "And if you should find your magic, what then?" "Then the spell will be broken and I will begin to die, as I began at my birth. Even the greatest wizards grow old, like other men, and die." He swayed and nodded, and then snapped awake again. A tall, thin, shabby man, smelling of dust and drink. "I told you that I was older than I look," he said. "I was born mortal, and I have been immortal for a long, foolish time, and one day I will be mortal again. So I know something that a unicorn cannot know. Whatever can die is beautiful, more beautiful than a unicorn, who lives forever and who is the most beautiful creature in the world. Do you understand me?" "No," she said. The magician smiled wearily. "You will. You're in the story with the rest of us now, and you must go with it, whether you will or not. If you want to find your people, if you want to become a unicorn again, then you must follow the fairy tale, to King Haggard's castle, and wherever else it chooses to take you. The story cannot end without the princess." The white girl said, "I will not go." She stepped away, her body weary, and the cold hair falling down. She said, "I am no princess, no mortal, and I will not go. Nothing but evil has happened to me since I left my forest, and nothing but evil can have become of unicorns in this country. Give me my true shape again, and I will return to my trees, to my pool, to my own place. Your tale has no power over me. I am a unicorn. I am the last unicorn." Had she said that once before, long ago, in the blue-green silence of the trees, Smendrick continued to smile. But Molly Grew said, "Change her back. You said you could change her back. Let her go home." "I cannot," the magician answered. "I told you. The magic is not mine to command. Not yet. That is why I too must go on to the castle, and the fate or fortune that awaits there. If I tried to undo the transformation now, I might actually turn her into a rhinoceros. That would be the best thing that could happen. As for the worst," he shivered and fell to silence. The girl turned from them and looked away at the castle that stooped over the valley. She could see no movement at any window, or among the tottering turrets, or any sign of the Red Bull. Yet she knew that he was there, brooding at the castle's root, till night should fall again, strong beyond strength, invincible as the night itself. For a second time she touched the place on her forehead where her horn had been. When she turned again, they were asleep where they sat, the man and the woman. Their heads were pillows on air. Their mouths hung open. She stood by them, watching them breathe, one hand holding the black cloak closed at her throat, very faintly. For the first time, the smell of the sea came to her. We are now to chapter 9. The Sentinels saw them coming little before sunset. When the sea was flat and blinding, the Sentinels were pacing the second tallest of the many awry towers that sprouted up from the castle and made it resemble one of those odd trees that grow with their roots in the air. From where they stood, the two men could survey the entire valley of Hagsgate as far as the town and the sharp hills beyond, as well as the road that ran from the rim of the valley to the great through sagging front gate of King Hagrid's castle. "A man and two women," said the first sentinel. He hurried to the far side of the tower, a startling motion, since the tower is tilted so that half of the sentinel's sky was sea. The castle sat on the edge of a cliff which dropped, like a knife blade, to a thin yellow shore, frayed bare over green and black rocks. Soft, baggy birds squatted on the rocks, snickering, said so. The second man followed his comrade across the tower at an easier pace. He said, "A man and a woman. The third one in the cloak. I'm not certain of the third." Both men were clad in homemade mail, rings, bottle caps, and links of chain sewed into half-cured hides, and their faces were invisible behind rusted visors. But the second sentinel's voice and gait alike marked him as the elder. "The one in the black cloak," he said. "Do not be so sure of that one too soon." But the first sentinel leaned out into the orange glare of the tipped-up sea, scraping a few studs loose from his poor armor on the parapet. It is a woman," he declared. I would doubt my own sex before hers." "And well you may," the other observed sardonically, "since you do nothing that becomes a man but ride astraddle. I warn you again, be slow to call that third male or female. Wait a little and see what you say." The first sentinel answered him without turning. "If I had grown up never dreaming that there were two separate secrets to the world, if I had taken every woman I met to be exactly like myself, still I would know that this creature was different from anything I had ever seen before. I have always been sorry that I had never pleased you. But now, when I look at her, I am sorry that I never pleased myself. Oh, I am sorry." He bent still further over the wall, straining his eyes toward the three slow figures on the road. A chuckle clattered behind his visor. "The other woman looks sore-footed and bad-tempered," he reported. "The man appears an amiable sort, though plainly of the strolling life. A minstrel like enough or a player." He said nothing more for a long while, watching them draw near. "And the third?" the old man inquired presently. "Your sundown fancy with the interesting hair. Have you outworn her in a quarter of an hour? Already seen her closer than love dares?" His voice rustled in his helmet like small clawed feet. "I don't think I could ever see her closely," the sentinel replied. However close she came. His own voice was hushed and regretful, echoing with lost chances. "She has a newness," he said. "Everything is for the first time. See how she moves, how she walks, how she turns her head, all for the first time. The first time anyone has ever done these things. See how she draws her breath and lets it go again, as though no one else in the world knew that air was good. It is all for her. If I learned that she had been born this very morning, I would only be surprised that she was so old. The second sentinel stared down from his tower at the three wanderers. The tall man saw him first, and next the dour woman, their eyes reflecting nothing but his armor, grim and cankered and empty. But then the girl in the ruined black cloak raised her head, and he stepped back from the parapet, putting out one tin glove against her glance. In a moment she passed into the shadows of the castle with her companions, and he lowered his hand. She may be mad, he said calmly. No grown girl looks like that unless she is mad. That would be annoying, but far preferable to the remaining possibility. Which is? The younger man prompted after a silence. Which is that she was indeed born this morning. I would rather that she were mad. Let us go down now. When the man and the woman reached the castle, the two sentries were standing on either side of the gate, their blunt, bent halberds crossed and their falchions hitched round in front of them. The sun had gone down, and their absurd armor grew steadily more menacing as the sea faded. The travelers hesitated, looking at one another. They had no dark castle at their backs, and their eyes were not hidden. "Give us your names," said a parched voice of the second sentinel. The tall man stepped forward. "I am Smendrick the magician," he said. "This is Molly Grew, my helper, and this is the Lady Amalthea." He stumbled over the name of the white girl as though he had never before spoken it. "We seek an audience with King Haggard," he continued. "We have come a long way to see him." The second sentry waited for the first to speak, but the young man was looking at the Lady Amalthea. Impatiently he said, "State your business with King Haggard." "I will," the magician replied, "to Haggard himself." "What kind of royal matter could it be that I might confide to doormen and porters? Take us to the king." The kind of royal matters could be we are going to stop it right here because we are almost out of time. We are going to pick this up right here and find my bookmark. Here it is. We are on page 95. That's good. And we'll be picking this up. This has been chapter 9 of our reading of The Last Unicorn by Peter Beagle. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. And if you want to support me in any way at all that information is in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.